Welcome friends, welcome back to the kitchen, welcome back to Sunday morning and the old cookbook show. Today we're going to do a recipe out of this cookbook called the Home Cookbook. This is a book published here in Toronto in 1877. It is compiled by ladies of Toronto and chief cities and towns in Canada. So it's a community cookbook, but the community is, everywhere across Canada. And so every recipe, or almost every recipe, is attributed to a name, but it doesn't say where that person lived across the country, just gives their name. And so today we're going to do a recipe called chocolate cream, which is essentially a chocolate pudding, chocolate custard, a chocolate custard pudding. I'm sure you could probably freeze and churn and freeze it and make a really good ice cream. Anyway, but today we're just going to make it as a chocolate pudding. So it starts off in the first mystery. So this is 1877. One of the reasons I find this book so interesting is that it's at another one of those points where it shows recipes from an older time. In the bread section, it talks about keeping your own yeast in order to make the breads, while other recipes have moved forward and they're using compressed yeast cakes that you just go to the grocery store and buy, or go to the market and buy. And in other recipes, they talk about amounts that we no longer use, or packaging that is no longer used. And so the first mystery is packaging that's no longer used. Half a cake of chocolate. So I've got chocolate here, half a cake. 1877, how much was half a cake? So we go to Best Chocolate and Cocoa Recipes by the Walter Baker and Company. This is from the same time period. And inside, they have an illustration that shows the product mix that they were making at that time. So Walter Baker, Baker's chocolate. Everybody knows a square of Baker's chocolate, or everybody of a certain age knows a square of Baker's chocolate. Before they started selling it as a square, and also at the same time for many years, they sold squares and cakes. A cake, in reference to this, is half a pound. We need half a cake, so we need a quarter pound. I rounded down to 125 grams. Actually, I rounded up to 125 grams. So in goes the chocolate into our pot. Next instruction is some water. Actually, it says a little hot water. How much is a little hot water? I don't know. So I've got a little hot water. I've put the chocolate in the pot. I've got it on a fairly low temperature, and we're going to melt the chocolate into the water. I always find in this time period that instruction to melt the chocolate in the water to be counterintuitive, because when I learned to cook in the 1980s, you were admonished never to let hot water get into your melted chocolate because it would break. But in this earlier time period, melting chocolate in hot water was the thing to do. Now, I am supposed to add milk to this, but I'm going to let it melt before I add the milk. Move on to the eggs. I need to beat 5 eggs. And the last egg goes in. We've got a whisk. Beat those together. The last instruction in the recipe is to sweeten to your taste. Actually, the last instruction is to be eaten cold. We'll get to that. The second last instruction is sweeten to taste. So it doesn't tell you how much sugar to put in. How much sugar should we put in? It's a pudding. It's a custard, a chocolate custard. I would think that it would be relatively sweet. I would think. So I'm going to put some sugar in. The way it's written makes me think that the sugar should be added last, or they intend for it to be added last. Or the way it's written could also be taken as a sort of an offhand, oh yeah, if you want sugar, put some sugar in. Because so many of the recipes in this book are given in the cook's own shorthand. These are not professional recipe writers. And you can tell that the recipes haven't been sort of tested and fixed and gone over before publishing. They've just thrown them in because the recipes cover a whole range of types of ways that people would write recipes. I think it's best to put the sugar in with the eggs and get it dissolved into the eggs. And I'm going to put that much in. Okay, this is where we come to the milk. So I need 2 cups of milk, in the eggs, and 1 cup of milk in the chocolate. So now we're supposed to bring this chocolate milk mixture to a boil. And then just like any custard that you're making, we'll temper the eggs with the hot milk and chocolate mixture, and then we put the whole thing back into the pot and cook it until it's thick. Okay, the chocolate mixture has come to a boil. Our eggs, milk, and sugar are ready to go. So we'll temper slowly. And back on the heat. So the instruction at this point is stir well and boil all together for a few minutes. There is a temperature that you're supposed to bring it to in order to get a good custard set. It's around 180 degrees. 160 degrees pasteurizes the eggs if you're worried about pasteurization. 180 degrees kind of gives you a good set on your custard. Even in the 1870s, a lot of kitchens would not have had a kitchen thermometer. You would still just be doing things by time or by sort of look or feel. There's a way to put a spoon in here, and you if it coats the back of the spoon and then you run your finger through it, you know that you've gone far enough. This one just tells you to boil it a couple of minutes, and that's going to get you where you need to be. So I'm going to stir constantly because I don't want it to scorch to the bottom of the pot. And we'll bring it up to a boil and see what happens. I've got my stovetop on 8. It goes to 9, so I'm almost full blast. I've been whisking constantly. So it doesn't come to a boil until I stop whisking, and then it comes to a boil. But I'm whisking because both the chocolate and the milk could scorch to the bottom of the pot, and I don't want that to happen. It has thickened noticeably. When I'm whisking it now, I can sort of see the trail that the whisk leaves in the chocolate pudding. So I'm going to say this is cooked to the right point. I'm going to turn that off. It doesn't say how to serve it. It just says to eaten cold. 1877, Toronto. Everybody would have had an ice box or a cold cellar. Or, in the case of today, it's February, and it's minus 28 outside. So there was always a cold option around in Canada at that time. So I'm going to pour it into this jug, just because the jug has a spout. So chilling it wouldn't have been a problem in 1877. What to serve it in is a bit of a problem. When my grandmother made pudding, when I was a little kid, it was always in a serving bowl, and the serving bowl would come to the table and people would scoop it out. Today, most people want it in a little ramekin. So I'm going to pour it into ramekins to start, and then whatever is left over, because I end up with 1,500 milliliters, a liter and a half of pudding. The texture is a little grainy. I kind of thought it would be boiling it just seems like the wrong thing to do. Cooking it a little bit more gently while stirring it would have been the better option, I think, to get a better texture. But time will tell. I mean, once this solidifies, when it's cold, it could come together quite nicely. So, filled the ramekins, and I've got a little bit left over. So I'm just going to put it in this bowl. We'll chill it down, and I will see you back here for a tasting.
Hey, Glenn, what do we got today? Oh, my. Hi, friends.
It is...
Who's that bowl for?
That's for myself later. So what we have here is, if I remember, chocolate cream. It's essentially a chocolate custard chocolate pudding.
Ooh.
Let's give it a go.
Time?
I have some
Concerns?
Yeah.
Yeah, and then it usually works out. It looks chocolatey.
It is chocolatey. Okay. Here's my concerns.
It tastes really chocolatey.
Yep. Texture's off. And often when I do these recipes, I know there's going to be a problem because it doesn't seem quite right. If I made this again, I would not melt the chocolate with water first. I would melt it just with the milk. I would not put water anywhere near that chocolate.
Okay.
And when it came to the cooking point, where it told me to bring it to a boil and boil it for a few minutes, I would not ever bring it to a boil. I would gently heat it, stirring constantly until it gets to 180 degrees Fahrenheit.
So, yes, I will agree. It is not a creamy pudding flavor, nor is it a custardy, I don't mean flavor, texture is what I meant, sorry. And it's not a custard texture.
It's got a bit of a grainy texture.
It does, but I don't know. If you knew that going in, I guess you'd be fine. Tastes okay. Tastes great.
It tastes fantastic. I'll eat that. I'll have no problem eating that.
So there's water in it? Sorry.
Yeah, there's water in it.
So it's not as creamy as something that you would normally make, because I know you're biased for, 35% cream.
Yeah. So I used Homo. Mm-hmm. So
3.5, not 35, but
3.5, and that's if you're living other places, that's often called whole milk because it's what comes out of the cow or most cows. 3.5, and so that's what probably in 1877 they would have been using.
I don't know.
But it
they could have just taken it warm straight from the cow.
Yes, and if you were making this in the city, it wouldn't have been homogenized. You probably would have had it delivered, and the cream would have been at the top, and then what's left in the bottom is skim. Mm-hmm. So who knows what they used? We'll never know. It was many, 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 many decades ago, and I have no clue how Mrs. King got her milk. But with those two changes, I think the texture would be amazing. I mean, at the same time, look, it's gone. There's no problem plowing through that pudding.
No.
Thanks for stopping by. See you again soon.